Good evening. It is great to be with you. It was great to start the evening with the national anthem of our country, our democracy, the United States, and then with the anthem of the largest democracy in the history of the world, India, which of course is the nation that gave us Diwali. And this is my first Diwali celebration. So it gave me the chance to explore the ancient stories that form the basis of what is celebrated. No one from any time or place could be anything less than riveted by the grand epic. After some palace intrigue, Prince Rama was forced out of his home in Ayodhya, forced to live in the forests for 14 years. Rama's wife, Sita, and his loyal and dutiful younger brother, Lakshmana, joined him in exile. And that sounds pretty bad. But in all the great stories, when things get bad, what happens next? They get worse. And things did get worse. The demon king, Ravana, kidnapped Rama's wife, Sita, and brought her to his stronghold in Lanka. Why would he do that? Well, I suppose that demon kings don't really need reasons to do bad things. But Ravana did have one. It was a misguided quest for revenge on behalf of his sister. But when things get very dark, the very darkest, that's always the opportunity for light. And so Rama and Lakshmana, with help from others, managed to wage a fierce battle and defeated Ravana and got Sita back safely. Now, instead of being exiles, they were able to return to Ayodhya, and Rama was joyfully welcomed as the rightful king. And here's the part that forms the core of the Diwali celebrations. All the bright lights, the diyas that led the way back into Ayodhya, back into Rama's true home. Now, obviously, I'm not telling anyone here anything that they didn't know already. Me telling you the story behind Diwali is about as silly as me offering to show a computer scientist how to use a pocket calculator. In fact, you're all probably thinking of ways that I've already botched the story or left out important details, and certainly how I mispronounced the names. You're just too polite to let it show, and even if you did, I couldn't see any of you because of the lights anyway, so go ahead. But I recounted the tale for a very different reason, at least in part for a very specific purpose. And that is, I'd like you to travel back thousands of years ago and thousands of miles away to when the story of Diwali was first told and heard. When your ancestors heard the Ramayana deep in the heart of India, not one of them could have imagined that one day those stories would be told deep in the heart of Texas. And not just that, but they could not have imagined that the story would be coming from the mouth of a very pale white guy wearing a suit and tie. Now think about it from the other perspective. Go back to the origins of modern Texas. That doesn't require nearly as much travel in time or in distance. Texas became a republic in 1836. It became a state in 1845. The current Texas Constitution, our state's highest law, took effect in 1876. Compared to the origins of the Ramayana, Texas's infancy was practically yesterday. But even so, early Texans would have been almost as surprised as ancient Indians at a gathering like this one in Texas. It would not have occurred to early Texans that there would one day be a beautiful celebration of the Festival of Lights right here in Harris County. They would be amazed that dozens of public officials would be here participating in it, and that one of the justices of the Supreme Court would stand up and recount a story that, for most of world history, primarily has been told by Hindus to other Hindus. The founders of early Texas would never have imagined that the greater Houston area would ever have even 150,000 people at all. In 1850, Harris County had a population of 5,000. By 1876, when the Constitution took effect, it was barely above 20,000. So imagine how surprised the founders of Texas would be to learn that about 150,000 Hindus are living in the greater Houston area today. But here's the important part. The founders of Texas may not have expected these demographic developments, but those developments were made possible because of groundwork laid by early Texans. Even if their vision did not specifically anticipate that a vibrant group of future fellow Texans would have ancestral roots in the Indian subcontinent, what matters is their vision of individual liberties and religious freedom and equality and self-government and the rule of law. And that vision is why Texas became a place that you have made your home. Many of you in the Hindu community came here from the Indian subcontinent yourselves, or have parents or grandparents who did, perhaps stopping somewhere else along the way. Have you ever had anyone ask you, why are you in Texas? And that question could be asked offensively, and I hope it hasn't been asked that way. But it could be asked out of genuine curiosity. Why did you, with roots in one of the most ancient societies on the globe, make your home in Texas? And that, I think, is a wonderful question to ask. And in truth, it's the same question for virtually all of us, because it doesn't take too many generations before nearly all of us must trace our roots to somewhere else other than here. And I bet that a lot of you got to Texas before my family did. So for all of us, let's ask, why am I in Texas? And I'd like to think it was because you or someone ahead of you in your family believed in the dream of Texas, that this state offers freedom to succeed, to believe, to thrive, to grow, that Texas is a place, maybe the best place in the world today for someone who is hardworking, energetic, determined to succeed, whether they come from the most privileged family or from a family with nothing. And I mentioned the Texas Constitution a few minutes ago. Next year, 2026, marks our Constitution's 150th anniversary. And starting next week, all Texas voters, if they've been registered for 30 days at least, as we learned a few moments ago, can go to the polls to determine whether 17 amendments should be made to our state's constitution. Since 1876, the people of Texas, the people of our state, have amended our constitution hundreds of times on topics that affect all of our lives. And yet, many Texas voters are barely aware that such a thing as the Texas Constitution even exists, much less why it exists and what it is for. Very few in this room fit in that category. So I'll only briefly mention why it's so significant. And that is that the Texas Constitution is our state's highest and most fundamental law. It plays the same role for Texas that the U.S. Constitution plays for our nation. The Texas Constitution describes how all state governmental power will be distributed, who can exercise that power, and how those officials, like the ones who were on stage earlier tonight, are elected or chosen. Our Constitution provides for individual rights and liberties, which can far exceed what the federal Constitution provides. Perhaps the single most important obligation of the court on which I sit, the Supreme Court of Texas, is to ensure that our state's constitution is properly understood and followed. State constitutions and state laws are a big part of what makes one state different from another. Yes, there's a common American baseline that the Bill of Rights provides, but that's just a starting point, leading to substantial differences among the 50 states. I'm going to read to you from the Bill of Rights of the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 6. All men have a natural and indefeasible right to worship Almighty God according to the dictates of their own consciences. No man shall be compelled to attend, erect, or support any place of worship or to maintain any ministry against his consent. No human authority ought, in any case whatsoever, to control or or interfere with the rights of conscience in matters of religion, and no preference shall ever be given by law to any religious society or mode of worship, but it shall be the duty of the legislature to pass such laws as may be necessary to protect equally every religious denomination in the peaceable enjoyment of its own mode of public worship. The Texas Constitution's proud and ringing protections of religious liberty for everyone is just one example of why you and your families were wise to choose Texas and to become Texans. This community belongs in Texas, every bit as much as any other. And you have chosen a home that in so many ways and over so many years has dedicated itself to the concept of self-government and the concept that every individual and every family has the right to flourish. And as I say this, I think back to the Diwali story. The light from the diyas illuminating the path home for Rama and Sita and Lakshmana, the path home. My belief is that those drawn to Texas likewise have come with diyas illuminating the path. Over 150 hard years of work building and sustaining a free society, a free economy, a culture of democracy and equality, a virtuous citizenry committed to living under the rule of law, to respect our constitutional order, and to accept the blessings that always come with freedom. All of these things come from each generation lighting its own diyas, adding to the lights that came before and letting them shine, making the path brighter and clearer so that those who understand the promise of Texas can find that path, and when they get to Texas, they can say, I am home, I'm home. And those of us who are already here can celebrate with them when they get home. But it isn't all light. The lights of Diwali would not be meaningful unless darkness were also real. The years leading up to the return to Ayodhya weren't easy. They were long and grueling and dangerous. They were dark. And any society that wants to be based on that which is good, any society that wants to be a source of light, can never forget that overcoming darkness requires effort, energy, and commitment. Each light that the Texans of yesterday laid down to illuminate the path home for us today was earned at the price of struggle. Some of that struggle was literally in the form of battle. Some aspects of our past have truly involved the conflict between dark and light. That's true of everywhere on the planet. And it's true because human beings never have been, are not now, and never will be perfect. But we can try to get better rather than worse. And Texans have struggled and have kept their eyes on the light, doing our best to consign the darkness to the past. Every generation in Texas history has fought to preserve what is great about Texas, to pass that on to their children and their children's children and their children's children's children, to try to make Texas a little bit better, a bit more prosperous, a bit freer than they found it. And some generations have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. Not that long ago, Texas was a huge state in land, but a tiny one in population, in influence, wealth. Texas was once a poor state. And yet, as Governor Abbott has often observed, if Texas today were an independent nation, it would be the 8th largest economy in the world. And that didn't come easy, and it doesn't have to stay that way. No economy, no society can truly prosper without the rule of law, without freedom, equality, wise laws, and assurance that the laws will be followed and enforced equally as to all people. And when the rule of law erodes, when corruption grows, when the laws are unfair, when the courts don't function properly, when the public loses confidence in the institutions of government, societies decay. Economies shrink and collapse. Venezuela should be one of the world's richest countries, but without stable institutions from the rule of law, it is an example of dysfunction. The line of people trying to get in is very short. The fact that our grandparents' generation and our parents' generation preserved the rule of law in Texas and in the United States does not guarantee that it will be there for our children and our grandchildren and our great-great-great-grandchildren. Instead, just as those who came before us did, our generation has the obligation not just to benefit from the blessings that Texas offers, but to work hard, to struggle even, to ensure that we leave Texas even better than we found it. Wise self-government can only succeed with an active and engaged electorate. When Texans in the 1840s, 1850s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s wanted to exercise their power of self-government in the most basic way by voting, they did not do what we can do starting next week, and that is drive around in their cars until they see early voting station here and pull in and cast their vote. When Texans early in our history wanted to vote, they would get on their horse and they would ride for 3 hours, or maybe in some parts of our state for 3 days, until they got to the county courthouse on election day, leaving their family behind, leaving their farms unworked, exposing themselves to peril, physical peril, accidents, all so that they could go and cast their vote. And when they got to the county courthouse on election day, they couldn't do what we can do today and say, as they pull up to the voting station, let's see what's on the ballot today. Because there was no ballot. You wrote it with your own hand on a piece of paper, which means that when those who came before us wanted to cast their vote, they not only put themselves at risk, they not only gave up that precious time in the farm, but they had to educate themselves before they showed up. And they did all of that because they knew that every public official in our state is vested with power over the rest of us. And they knew that this poor, struggling state would only thrive and grow and be better if wise people were given those roles. People who had a vision of a stronger, greater Texas, and those people are the ones that our ancestors tried their best to elect. They knew how important it was to vest power only in people who, to use the language of Diwali, would light diyas and not extinguish them. Casting an informed vote is hard, especially in Harris County and the counties surrounding it. Harris County has the longest ballot in the United States of America, and that's primarily because of the judges. Those who came before us did not envision Harris County having even 150,000 people, but of course it has so many more, and as the population grows and the law becomes more complex, the need for more judges arises, and the ballot gets longer and longer and longer. So, being an informed voter is hard work, don't get me wrong. Knowing who the candidates are can be exhausting. But tonight is proof, I think, the stage that we had earlier, that public servants are only too willing, too happy to talk to their fellow citizens about why they want to serve you in the job to which they're elected. In truth, the problem that so many candidates have is getting voters' attention, not being unwilling to engage with them. If you are interested in talking to candidates who will be on the ballot, whether in the Missouri city elections that are coming up or the statewide elections, the countywide elections, you're not going to have to work too hard to find them willing to talk to you about their views, to hear your views from you, and that will allow you to make wise judgments about who best will lead Texas into the next generation. And perhaps there are some here in this audience from your community who may be willing to go beyond being active citizens and dedicate at least part of your time to public service. When you do that, and when you are one of the ones who will come up in a future year and stand or sit in those seats, people will applaud you and say great things. And this happens. I go across Texas. Oh, Justice Young, thank you for all you do. And I've got to be honest with you. I love what I do. Justice Gunn, Justice Bridges, they love what they do. The hero of my story is not me, it's my wife who's sitting over here. Because public servants' families are the ones that actually commit the sacrifice in order to allow our fellow citizens to be well represented. We could not do what we do for you if we did not have our families at home supporting us in all that we do. So when you see your public servants, thank them, and then look for their husband or wife and thank them. And let me close, I know you've been looking forward to that word for some time now, by extending my appreciation to you for being included tonight at all. It's a special honor that a group of Texans who are united to bring greater civic awareness to the Hindu community would invite me, a Christian man with no ancestry in the Indian subcontinent where the Hindu religion was born. And as a Christian, as we lit the diyas together, all thinking about the need for light, the promise of light, the gift of light, my mind was on several beautiful verses from the Christian scriptures, including this one. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. I was likewise thinking about the statement of Jesus Christ in the Gospel of John, that I am come a light into the world, that whosoever believeth on me should not abide in darkness. And in 1630, as the Massachusetts Bay Colony was about to be founded, Governor John Winthrop famously quoted the Gospel of Matthew, in which Jesus said, "Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid." Winthrop called that new colony a city on a hill, and that has been taken to refer to America itself, a new country conceived in virtue and liberty that must live up to its ideals and shine its light for all the world to see. And that again reminds me of the lights of Diwali. I hope that every single one of you truly feels that the diyas are lit and always leading you home to Texas, that you feel that this is your home and that you are ready to do what it takes to keep the light, to fight against the darkness on behalf of those who come after us. I look out, and what I mostly see is not primarily a group of Hindus, but a group of fellow Texans, and that even though there may be no common blood flowing through our veins, in a civic sense at least, we are brothers and sisters, all part of a common endeavor to keep the light shining in Texas. And I have one last thing to say. Aapko Deepavali ki hardik shubhkamnayein. Thank you so much.